Kia ora, good evening. This week is Māori Language Week, and the principal of Invercargill's Te Wharekura o Arowhenua says due to full immersion schools, Te Reo remains strong and plans are afoot to do more for students new to the language to help them learn in the same environment.
I think due to kohanga reo and kura kaupapa it is growing, but then it's becoming a very, how do we say it, a university type language, where a lot of the native speakers do not understand what is being said, because a lot of the old language is being brought back by these experts in te reo, and so the old people sometimes, like Scotty Morrison on the news, they don't understand what he's saying because he's got all these fancy names and things. But our children are aware, because all the new curriculum documents are in the latest. Even I have difficulty with them, so the kids have fun. When I don't understand something, they can tell me.
What are your thoughts on them perhaps bringing it back as a compulsory subject in schools?
I don't think it should be compulsory because they haven't got enough teachers. Absolutely not. You look at Invercargill, there's not enough teachers there. So despite the fact that the principals would like Māori language in their schools, don't have the people. They're all here at the moment.
What about the preservation of different dialects around New Zealand?
All the iwi, hang on to those. They're great. You go up north and you'll hear a difference. Tainui, Waikato area difference, around the coast, Tūhoe, they all hang on quite blatantly to their different dialects, as does Ngāi Tahu here. So our kids are familiar with all of them, because I think it's their right to know, because we're multi-tribal down here, and we respect the fact that Ngāi Tahu are the people of this area, but we still pertain to our own iwi groups, so we're familiar with so we'll say, we're going to speak in Ngāi Tahu today, and everybody will have a go and forget, but we sort of make it fun, because I think if learning the language is fun, kids are more interested, people are more interested, yeah.
Mrs Wainui believes the best way forward is making learning te reo fun, and says speeches and waiata are a good method for teaching Māori language.
Heaps of kids who would like to, not just Māori kids, it's not just for Māori. If we live in New Zealand, hey, let's have a go. You don't have to. But I think parents need to be aware that they can expose their kids to this sort of thing. It's what we are, in New Zealand.
She also says the Wharekura o Arowhenua will adapt to make learning te reo more accessible to new students.
Next year we're thinking of letting older students come in, but have a specific teacher who has to be experienced to actually help them with te reo.
Meanwhile, te reo rolled off the tongues at the annual Pūtaki Kōrero competition today at Murihiku Marae in Invercargill.
This year, 14 competitors from years 1 to 4 from 4 schools across the city selected their own topics or could choose from a list of suggestions including family, Māori gods and technology. Schools competing in the esteemed event included the Wharekura, Middle School, New River Primary and Southland Girls High School. Some delivered the whole speech in Māori, while others chose to present their whakapapa only in te reo. This is the second year the event's been held at Murihiku Marae, which is considered a more holistic environment for competitors and is seen to return the mana back to the people of the area.
The 6 yearly bridge inspections across the Southland district are now complete. The 56 bridges have been assessed and deterioration identified since the last review. Maximum weight loadings and speed limits are adjusted to keep the bridges safe, but this does have an effect on heavy traffic flows to on-farm locations.
It can have an impact on dairy tankers that they have to alter their route, or they may have to alter the loading configuration. So instead of it being the last point of pickup where they can top up to full capacity, they may have to change their schedule, that they have to go to that particular farm, and it may need to be the first pickup point on their route, and that will allow them to get to that farm and then back to the rest of their journey. Yeah.
So that would apply potentially to stock trucks too, which could involve shifting stock on the road in order to get to the vehicle, or?
So stock trucks could potentially also be affected, that they won't be able to take the full capacity, or they'll have to, say, load it up to half capacity or 3/4 capacity and then consolidate their loads at a point beyond the bridge restriction, or look at alternative options.
At this stage, there's 115 bridges around the province that now have weight restrictions or speed restrictions. That's over 10% of the bridges in the south. Is this going to be an ongoing issue where bridges are being downgraded constantly?
As previously indicated, we do a detailed inspection every 6 years. A lot of these bridges are actually timber bridges, though they are or do tend to be some of the older stock. And because it's every 6 years, it gives you a really good feel of our network, and we'll be using this information to come up with our program over the coming years, for which bridges need to be replaced or which bridges need to be strengthened up. To be fair, some of these bridges are at the end of the network, or even some of them may even be a paddock somewhere. So some of them might be 2 or 3 that aren't actually really used by a lot of vehicles. So yeah, it is a concern that we don't want too many posted bridges, because it can impact obviously it does impact on the heavy vehicles, and we don't want them necessarily travelling extensive distances to need to avoid those, because that's an extra cost to the road user again. So it's a fine balance. One of the reasons that you're trying to trade off, say, reducing the weight and having a speed restriction instead, or a combination of both. So if we did, say as an example, have the speed limit at open road speed limit, then we would potentially have to look at even reducing the weight restriction on the bridge further. So again, it's that balancing act of trying to allow as much heavy vehicle movement over that, but also trying to protect the integrity of the bridge.
Stay with us after the break. The Southern Region's busiest airport gets even busier, an offer of free financial advice, and yet another reason why Southland's not such a bad place to call home. Welcome back to South Today News. The Southern Region's busiest airport, Queenstown, just continues to get busier as the monthly passenger numbers reinforce. Total number of passengers through the airport in June was up 4.2% on June 2013 at 78,172. Most of that growth in numbers were international, up 22.7% at 20,835. Domestic traffic was up slightly on the same month last year at 57,337, up 0.7%. 1,248,879 passengers in total passed through the airport, up 4.2% on a year ago. More New Zealanders are opting to conduct their business with central government online. As at March this year, an average of 42% of measured government service transactions were completed digitally, up 30.4% when measurement started in June 2012. Some common digital government transactions include adult passport renewals, filing an individual tax return, applying for Ministry of Social Development financial assistance, paying for vehicle licences and paying a police fine. Good progress is being made towards the government's target that an average of 70% of New Zealand's most common transactions will be completed in a digital environment by 2017. In New Zealand First, the Invercargill Citizens Advice Bureau and the Institute of Financial Advisors are offering free financial advice clinics. Citizens Advice Bureau Invercargill Coordinator Nicola Kitson says the advice is impartial and commitment-free. She says it's advice that can go a long way to clearing up confusion associated with the financial sector.
Well, Hunter, it's a financial advice clinic, so it's not a budgetary advice clinic. That's really important. We see it as complementary to budgetary advice services in Invercargill, and it's really a free, impartial, independent service where anybody can come along and get the lowdown on financial services and products without any commitment to buy or participate in programs or anything like that. So it's really, dealing to the jargon of that financial sector, and really the opportunity for anybody to ask any questions at all of the advisors.
From where did the concept come?
Well, we were approached by Stephen O'Connor from the Institute of Financial Advisors, so they're the professional body, just really wondering if we were interested in partnering with them to provide a clinic. And for us, any opportunity to improve information, advice, support to people in our community is what we're about. So we were delighted to be able to accept that invitation, and we've been working really over the last year to format a memorandum of understanding between both organisations and get the concept quite clear, also looking around the country to see what else was operating as well.
And what else is operating around the country?
Well, then we found that nothing was, and that this was the first financial advice service being offered by a Citizens Advice Bureau in the country. So there's a few other bureaus just watching to see how it works, and I think from the Institute of Financial Advisors, I think they're also looking at how it works and maybe replicating it in other centres. The clinic is on the first Wednesday of every month, 1 to 2, quarter-of-an-hour appointments. We do need an appointment because we need to have a bit of an idea about who's coming along. But it is that opportunity to start that journey and to really, without that need for a commitment, find out what's involved in anything, KiwiSaver, insurance, how to invest lump sum payments, all those sorts of financial type things.
So we have, as you mentioned before, there has always been budgeting services available in the community for a long time anyway, and free legal advice. Well, this is free financial advice.
Absolutely. Very complimentary, we think. The services providing budgetary advice in Invercargill do a fantastic job, and we're not looking to duplicate what they do. What we're really looking to do is complement that and provide people that opportunity to get that, I guess, sense of their own financial literacy up, and to work through the jargon and find out, what are things, what's the difference between a stock and a share? What does that really mean? What's a bond? How does that work? What is KiwiSaver? What's resident withholding tax? Somebody asked recently. So, those things are really important. And I think information is always the key to really controlling your future.
And finally, as if we needed more reasons to love living in the south, poultry-loving Aucklanders are crying foul at a proposed new super city bylaw that would set the number of chickens per household at half a dozen. Well, there's no such concern for Southland's urban chicken owners. City keepers of poultry not only pay a quarter what Aucklanders pay for the property on which to keep their chickens, as an added lifestyle bonus they can keep over 4 times the chickens, with the maximum set at 25. Even then, more can be kept with special permission from the City Council. The situation in Gore, the region's second largest urban centre, is a more restricting one, with the maximum number of birds to be kept without official sanctions set at 12 birds. And if one or more of those birds happens to be a rooster, you may have to build a soundproof coop to keep the neighbours happy during those noisy early morning moments. Well, that's all from the news desk for today. Sports is up next. From the news team, have a great night.